Hey everyone, Escaped Alien here, and today we are going to be covering the second Metazoo Monday that occurred on Monday, June 9th. It started at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Because I'm on the West Coast though, you're going to see that my time is going to show 4 p.m. as the start time. So we are going to cover, just like in the last episode, Charlie's responses as well as Mike Ryan's responses. He's MGR on the Discord. And for those of you who don't know who Mike Ryan is, he had a fairly lengthy introduction in the Introduce Yourself section of the Discord, but he is the editor for Metazoo, basically. So he edits a lot of the information on the cards, the magazine, and then he's also writing the lore. From what I had seen, Wizards of the Coast type employee, and just has a lot of writing experience. So I think it was a good idea for them to include another person on the creative side of the team in the Metazoo Monday, so that way we can kind of get a larger perspective on what's going on. So we're going to start off with Charlie asking a poll question: is Air Bud a cryptid? And because this is after the fact, we had 28 votes, where 54% of the people said, yes, I've seen him with my own eyes. So apparently, according to the Metazoo fanbase, Air Bud is a cryptid. But Charlie also said, I've got Mike Ryan at MGR with us today. I'll let him introduce himself. And then Charlie says, Metazoo Monday Community Hour starts now. So like I said, we're going to go ahead and go to anything that is Mike Ryan's responses or Charlie's responses. And we'll read any questions that Charlie or Mike have directly responded to. So Mike, his first introduction, he says, good day everybody, I'm Mike. I'm the editor for the game, the magazine, and the Metazoo supplement. I'm also currently writing all the lore that appears on the website. So the first question that was answered was from Rom. Rom asks, are there additional plans for ancillary products for set releases? If there are, will products like Flex Decks be released alongside traditional expansion set boxes? And Charlie responds with, yep, tons of plans. Most are decision trees based on different circumstances. Complicating the core set SKU mix is a lower priority than introducing intermittent excitement and value. OP will ultimately have some unique stuff also, OP being organized play. Okay, and then we have a question from XIL Burned by Kevin. It says, Hurlocker, how many reactions for one spoiler today? And then Charlie says, by the end of the week, you'll be a happy caster, I promise. With a little heart. How sweet. Alright. Pear Collect says, Metazoo. And Charlie responds with, big agree. MGR says, LOL. Alright, so SYC Gaming says, will Greenclawed Monster and Crodvertsville Monster be on the next set? Need my Indiana beasties. Charlie responds with, as a child of Indiana, I'd love to see some come into play eventually. Gummy Worm asks, TCG player when? And Charlie responds with, up to them. We talked about this last week, but they've got some stuff they're working through. Some of that makes it tough to get priority. Some of that seems pointed towards being able to more fluidly onboard games like eBay. Optimistic over time, doing what we can. But there's nothing I can do to personally pull the trigger. Let them know you'd like to see it. They care the most about their buyers and what the buyers want. Alright, Jared B asks, how does one get better odds for online distribution through Cardi.io? And Charlie says Cardi.io isn't odds based, should just be first come first serve. They just took on new customer support reps to get better in that area. Hit them up for sure and make sure you are set up. They are soliciting torrential tides now. Okay, so it does look like MGR just types in responses, so I'm not exactly sure right away what somebody asked him, but he said, I worked on Magic for years, then I worked on Pokemon for even more years. I've been doing this since late 1994. Zealous TCG asks any word on binders, and Charlie responds with working on a solution for some different accessories, exact order and when those come out to TBD, to be determined. You all better show up and buy them too. Accessories are a massive inventory risk and the margins are unkind. Going against my better judgment, making them and partnering to pull it off. Alright, MGR said, I was playing in 1994, wrote to WotC to suggest improvements for the Duelist magazine, and they hired me to edit Magic. Alright, so Schmooze asked a question higher up. Schmooze asks, is there any possibility of getting Metazoo into stores like Target and Walmart again? A very large amount of people don't live near a game store, and it seems impossible to get any in person without traveling 2 hours. Alright, so that was very far up. So Charlie responds with, yes, it is a possibility. These things take time, and it's really important not to overload those channels. CardPro went into hundreds of Mayer grocery locations as an initial test and contained Metazoo products. We will continue to strategically work with retailers. We have good partners in the spaces, but big box measures sell through and margin by the square inch, and it's not good to push into pegs that you can't confidently move. We will be transparent and give a heads up about these opportunities when they come up. So MGR was responding to a question. He said, I was not. I had left WotC by then to write the Great American Novel and contract to Disney. Came back to Pokemon after that mess worked itself out. So apparently something was going wrong there. Alright, MGR says, I can neither confirm nor deny that Sam Sinclair and Adam Ackley, I think he meant Ackler, have bios printed out on my writing desk at this very moment. So somebody must have asked him if any of the old characters were going to be back in Metazoo lore, so it looks like there is a possibility there. So that is cool for the OG fans. Alright, let's see. So it looks like Camel Jr. asked a question. A lot of us want to know, does the 425-page Cryptid Nation Bible really exist? And if so, can you consider releasing it for the fans? It'd be cool to read how the 1.0 story was supposed to end. And then he provided a screenshot. Alright, so Charlie responded with, I have not seen anything suggesting it exists. It was not in the company files. Most of the things that people were told existed, at best existed in very, very partial form. There was not a single ready-to-release set in the bankruptcy, which is why we have and will continue to have a 100% track record of delivery. We don't announce things before they are certain. We don't tease things we aren't sure can come to be. When you see a product now, you know it is coming, and you'll be able to buy it and receive it. Alright, so MGR responded to a question with, yes, the children's book I've been working on with Jet Yates is Metazoo. Okay, so somebody asked him a follow-up question on what he was working on. And then he said Ackler. Okay, so he corrected himself on the Adam Ackler name. Dad had asked, how can I get my daughter to stop picking her nose? And MGR said, let her pick her friends. Alright, Maddie Collects asks, Metazoo coming to an Australian con when? And Charlie responds with, working on it, would be with distribution partners, not sure on specific form yet, but I'm super interested in seeing a bigger presence globally through partners. Alright, MGR, let's see, says, since we're in Q&A here, I have a question. If you're reading the lore on MetaZooTCG.com, what are you liking and not liking? Writing's done in a void, and it's driven by massive ego, so I'd love to hear directly from fans what they're willing to give their time to. Okay, MGR also says, I'm building a healthy backstory for all of those questions. In fact, Abraham is already wrestling with the concept of mapped cryptids that are self-aware. MGR also said, horror story underway, if that's a thing. That'd be cool. Be nice to see some more horror in Metazoo. Alright, so we have a question from Collectible Crusader that Charlie answered. Charlie, are there plans on introducing quote-unquote shiny variants of cryptids? We had white and black Mothman in the OG, and after you mentioned in last week's Metazoo Monday that the reason the same cryptids can have different elements is due to the caster who is capturing it. Could this indicate that certain casters get shiny variants instead of the regular cryptid variants? And for those of you that aren't familiar with Pokemon Shinies, I think that's where this is coming from, is Pokemon Shinies. It's basically just a variation in the Pokemon color. So Charlie responds to Collectible Crusader with, interesting question. I don't think it would work as strictly as shiny variant, but because the caster that is mapping can have an impact on the physical appearance of the mapped cryptid, you could theoretically have rarer appearances, especially if the aura of the caster is particularly antithetical to the cryptid origins. Lots of neat stuff that could be created in this space. And that is certainly true. So it looks like somebody did respond with a Delta Species card. Probably brought up by MGR, so that is cool. Deoxys. And then we also have Kelsey. It's Kelsey Ticino, and she is, of course, one of the old school and beloved Metazoo artists, and she was in there a little bit. And for no apparent reason, I like Snipe, and she responds with, it's because he's just a little guy. Snipe fans unite. So also very cool to see some of the Metazoo artists jumping in. And if you guys don't know, this little symbol right here denotes that that is an artist that was recently added to the Discord as a role potential. So pretty cool to see a distinction in the artist there. Alright, PokeSliders asks Charlie, who are you picking in Mario Kart? And Charlie says Wario. Okay. The Unimpressed Raven asks, are the artists allowed to do unofficial cryptid artworks? And in parentheses says, using Metazoo cryptid designs or original designs, sketch cards, commissions, prints, etc. And Charlie responds with, artists can draw whatever they want. They cannot sell original artworks featuring Metazoo trademarks because it weakens the trademark protections. They can remark or alter any official products. This is the policy at cons and generally. I love sketches and autographs and have collected them for a super long time from Pokemon and other TCGs. Metazoo has no policies at all about other versions of characters. The only interest is in protecting the validity and strength of the trademarks globally. Within those legal guidelines, we give as much bandwidth as we possibly can give. Zealous asks Charlie, favorite cryptid as of right now? And Charlie says, right now? It hasn't been revealed yet. Come back later. Hint, @Kate just did such a good art for it that I fell in love with. Alright, let's see. Kate, illustrator and sculptor who makes dragons and stuff TCG art. Okay, cool. So Kate is an official Metazoo artist. There you go. There's Kate. Alright, Happy Kitty asks, I'm curious, are artists allowed to work for other TCGs as well? And Charlie responds with, yeah, almost all of them do to my knowledge. Alright, Gummy Worm asks, any plans on moving away from the guaranteed hit per case model and make it more random? And Charlie says, there is not a guaranteed hit per case, and that is something that we've seen people experience when they are opening boxes. Alright, so now Charlie says, alright, question for you all. Let's flip the script. What cryptids do you want most to read a story about? And then MGR says, look at Charlie keeping me employed, smiley face. Alright, so we'll just read some responses here to Charlie's question. Schmooze Fanboy says, oh, that's tough. Zealous says Wendigo. Completely agree there with Zealous. I love Wendigo. Rom says Slate Belt Owlman. You'll have to look that one up. Yeah, I haven't heard of that one yet. TMX Comics says Frogman and his rival Toadman and Jersey Devil. Those are great choices. Collector says Airbud. Duh, we just found out that Airbud's a cryptid. Kurt Christ says Huggin' Molly. Jersey Shore Devil says Yeti and how he come to be in a water set from high mountains of Tibet. Cisnar says Tadpole Boy. XIL says Grays. Akula says Drop Bear. And Schmooze Boy says, I think it'd be cool to give Pomola or the Spectre Moose some more love. Steve's Collectibles says Pizza Bird. Pee Weezo says, my boy Sewergator, maybe crossover Pizza Party collab with the Ninja Turtles. That would be dope. Kel said, I'm partial to Piazza, or Paisa, though am very happy to hear Snipe is getting a bit of a story. Smooth says, though Pomola isn't really technically a cryptid, more like a religious figure for the Abenaki. Kate said, new storybook idea, Frogman and Toad. Gummy Worm also said Loch Ness Monster. MGR said Frogman's story is done and on the schedule for publishing, so that's pretty cool. And then I said a story about a green alien. I know, how selfish of me. Alright, so then Charlie asks, you could pick one artist to draw one cryptid for an alternate art. Who draws it and what is it? Buttercup says Yokai. Piweezo. Okay, just doing Michael Jackson eating popcorn, smiling. Alright, so Rompo 007 says Dinosaur of Ta Prom. Lily says, please God, not a squonk. Jersey Shore Devil says J. Scott Campbell, Mermaid. James Jam says Alt Art Uktena, that would be very dope. Got some more squonks going on here. Wendigo, Poncho, that makes sense. Can't go wrong with that. Cool Man W says, would like some story on Japanese cryptids. Very disappointed the original didn't quite make it there. I think we definitely all were disappointed that we didn't get to see the Yokai Island series. MGR says, Kappa story done at Cool Man W. Ben says, I want to see at Lily Chavash Dragon. Then we have the Unimpressed Raven saying Jet Yates, Bourgeoisie Birds. TMX says Victor to draw Kushtaka or JD again. Shmoo says I'd like to see something like Slenderman in the game. Pokeslider says I want a Walking Sam ULL Jackson. Okay. And then, let's see, Kels says, real talk, I love it. I've gotten to do so much more with my style and have a heck of a lot of freedom with card layouts. Also, enough time to really put heart into what I do. GQL has been a treat to work with and has been super flexible with my schedule since I work at a lab full-time and have odd art hours. So that's really good to hear, that the artists do have flexibility and freedom within what they're doing. So that is rad. So Rompo responded with Bathe the Blue Ox with Lily. Happy Kitty said something from Seb. It seems like he's gotten almost no arts so far compared to the other OG artists. Charlie responds with 4 arts and base set. Signing in Dallas, I think, more to come. Love Seb's work. Sneaky Sneaky was one of my favorite base set cards. I want to have him alter a box for me with Sneaky Sneaky busting out of all the different panels and peeking through. Okay, so there you go. So Seb got 4 arts in base set, and that kind of seemed like, when I was looking at the artist names throughout base set, it kind of seems like that's about average. I would say like a lot of the artists kind of got, you know, around that for the base set cards. I think we're used to seeing a smaller art team, so we're used to seeing the same names over and over again within these sets. But we do have a pretty large set size with a lot of different artists, so I think we're just not seeing quite as many artist names repeated within the same set. Also, Kelsey, the Pomolo art you did for UFO is so peak. And I agree with that for sure. Okay, so we have Kate saying, I bet John Gagney would do a spectacular yokai. And Charlie responds with, John is also a killer. I bet his distinct line work could play into some unique Japanese styles and aesthetics in cool ways. Okay, so Kels responded to Shmooze Fanboy saying, also Kelsey, the Pomola art you did for USO is so peak. She says, haha, thank you. I'd love the chance to redo the original arts of most of the guys I've designed at this point. Keep the idea, but just do it better, or fix things I couldn't make work with my experience at the time. That would be super dope. In fact, just a thought, if we ever had some kind of ancillary product that was just artists getting to reimagine original Metazoo art pieces, that would be super dope. And just throwing that out there, I think a lot of the OG fan base would love to see something like that. Just even like a mini set of that, or promo cards of that. Lily says, I want to see Kate personally do a unicorn. And she responds with, yes, actually. Hurlocker says, ancillary stuff is neat. It's a bad time to work in international components. They can cause delivery challenges and inflated costs with the tariffs. But I would love to see coins eventually of some sort. Grading Pokemon coins was my guilty pleasure for at least a year. Okay, so that original message must have had something to do with coins. I'm a huge fan of the old Metazoo coins. If you guys have seen some of my videos, some of my live streams, you can see that I have an insane amount of Metazoo coins, and I also have the completed collection of coins, so would love to see that in the future. Alright, so Charlie responded to another question that was deleted at Fran P. Lobato. Is a freshly minted Metazoo superfan, and I can't wait to see what they cook up next. Okay, not sure what that was pertaining to. A lot of these messages seem like they either were deleted or can't be loaded. Alright. Maybe my Discord's just glitching or something. Alright, MGR responded to a question from Gem Mint Pokemon. We have a Metazoo style guide to start with, and I researched them carefully back to their original appearance historically. I live in the Pacific Northwest, so I have a distinct idea that if they're close to each other, say Batsquatch and Bigfoot, they should interact. They're not blind to one another. And if they're territorial, you'd think there'd be a clash over whose forest this is. Okay, that's pretty cool. Territorial approach would be solid to see in the lore eventually, and also the Pacific Northwest got to be some of the most beautiful land that I've seen in the United States. So Mike is lucky to live up there. Feels weird saying Mike, doesn't it? All right, Charlie asks, okay, next question. Who is making new zoo content right now that you've been really appreciating and you want to call them out? This is something that's pretty interesting because we have a lot of amazing people within the Metazoo community. So I'll read out some of the names here. TMX says Zealous for sure. Amazing content creator, puts a lot of time into what he does. I definitely appreciate some Zealous content creation. Let's see. Okay, I remember a question. Yeah, there's not a guaranteed hit per case. Travis responded with, yeah, I learned this with time. And Charlie said, couldn't have happened to a better person, which is really funny because on my experience with the mod team, Travis is genuinely a super nice guy. So Travis did not get his case hit, unfortunately. Alright, so we have Kate saying Immortal Workshop and others who have put together events for the community. I couldn't participate due to time, but that was awesome to see. Definitely awesome to see some community-driven stuff. Let's see. Who else? Kind of seems like not a lot of people responded to that. I'll throw in honorable mentions. I mean, there's been people that have been in the Metazoo community forever and a lot of new faces. I don't want to miss anybody, but Menace actually released a recent video that names a lot of really solid content creators, and I definitely recommend just looking up Metazoo and seeing who's out there making content. You have a lot of really awesome people, and maybe I'll make my own Metazoo video to see if there's anybody that maybe Menace may have missed, or any of the other content creators that have shouted people out have missed. But there's a lot of people who can be placed on that list, and in the past I actually have given Charlie and the Metazoo team a list of all the content creators that I know that have made content in case they did ever want to just kind of shout you guys out or reach out to you for anything. So hopefully in the future we'll see a lot more Metazoo content creators participating in future things with Metazoo, but we'll see what happens over time. So Charlie says, with the last few minutes of this week's community hour, tell me what your favorite way to see new spoilers is. And then MGR says, I've never written a story that I'm as invested in as I am Abraham's, and I'm working literally between 5 and 12 hours a day working that novel out to make it as good as possible. No release date on the story yet, but it's all written, edited, and illustrated. It's a beauty. My own mom loves it and is expecting a free copy when it's out. Rom said, I like a variety. Wouldn't mind more videos though, talking about the cards or even animated shorts. Do you by chance have another for us? We have Rogue Rage shouting out Zealous. Yes, Zealous is definitely a king out here for us in the content creator world. Elevators responded with YouTube, trying to see more spoilers. Let's see. More YouTube content of any kind would be nice, says Buttercup. And it looks like we kind of ended there. So Charlie says, see you all next week. We will reach out to some of those favorite creators you mentioned and work with them for spoiler season. Buckle up. So that's awesome. So, make sure to spread the love and mention other creators out there. There's definitely a lot of people that would like to see being able to participate in the spoiler season, especially a lot of the OGs with Metazoo. I think it's really important to kind of reward the people who have stuck around and have made content despite not knowing where the future of Metazoo was heading. So like I said, if you want to see other people in the community get a chance to spoil some stuff and be a part of Metazoo's future, definitely shout them out. Definitely make sure to remind people that they're out there. MGR looks like we got a final response, maybe not a final response, but he responded with, I would like to add a note here. I've interacted with fans / players / collectors for Magic, Pokemon, War Machine / Hordes, and a slew of other games I've worked on. This group is so genuine and thoughtful, kind, that I'm a little taken back. I'm a jaded man. All these years in the game industry can give you a hard impression of your audience, but you guys are fun and engaging. I've enjoyed this. I'll come back next week if you're keen to have me. Alright, so that's dope. MGR was left with a good impression of the Metazoo fan base. Good job, guys. You didn't scare him off. And let's see. Smooze Fanboy, I'm assuming he's responding right here. So Smooze Fanboy said, we're certainly looking forward to it. It's been sick getting to talk to you guys, especially one of the guys that helped keep me obsessed with Pokemon as a kid. MGR responds with, trust me, at Schmooze, it was my pleasure to work on the game. I was the first editor when the game came to the US, and my first question about it was, Pocket Monsters? This is a kid's game? Alright, and then MGR responds to Kels, Frogman story should be out as a spoiler tie-in over the next few weeks. That's pretty cool. MGR says, I was middle-aged back when I worked on it, so I wasn't even sure why I was keeping them. My favorite back then was Dark Persian, the promo card for Nintendo Power magazine. Oh, I remember Nintendo Power. Alright. And then MGR decides to sign off at 5:06 p.m. my time, saying, it's been a real pleasure, gang. Thanks for letting me play in the sandbox. I'll check with Charlie about joining in next week. Take it easy, gang. Alright, then we just had some general talk. So we had about an hour-long Metazoo Monday there. Really cool to see, Charlie's in there, obviously. It's always fun hearing from Charlie. And then to have Mike, the lore writer, and several of the Metazoo artists chiming in. I think that one was a really good time. It's fun to get, more perspective from other team members working on the game. So, like I said before, hopefully these Metazoo Mondays, I'm going to try to do it every week and cover them just to read them out to people. I know, for me at least, if I'm working or something, it's nice to have something in the background where in our busy schedules, we can catch up on news like this just by popping in a headphone and listening in the background. Sometimes we don't have time to read all this, and I know a lot of you guys aren't on Discord. So hopefully I'm making your lives a little bit easier. But I will see you guys next time in whatever the video I release is. If not a video, you can catch me on Whatnot or catch me in the future Metazoo Monday readouts. Peace.